Yes, Mr. Bhupendra Verma, you have something to say? Dr. Mohammad Amshed, I am starting the session, right?
Yes, sir. Please start.
Chali, thank you so much. So, I think we have about 60 plus participants. Others are in the process of joining. A quick recap of what we did in the afternoon, rather forenoon session. We have spoken about two things. One is the theoretical aspect of reliability and validity, and second is a bit of shake hand with the software application called as MS. And I have restricted the discussion largely around the concept of validity, which is required for the reflective scale. Correct. So I have also shared a data file which contains about 16 items. We call them as observed statements. And before we break for the lunch, I think we have kind of gathered a common understanding in terms of knowing what are the concepts. And we have also done one small thing in that data file. We have created values for all the statements. Correct. And in the PPT, if you remember, we have just created or just plotted these three variables. And we said that we are largely interested in knowing the interplay between these three variables. Correct. Because there are some theories of maybe creativity or strategic thinking or leadership which connect these three variables, which says an individual who exhibits holistic frame, an individual who exhibits risk taking, an individual who exhibits strategic thrust. So we as of now we have an hypothesis which says that risk taking is our dependent largely, holistic frame is our independent, and strategic frame can be independent or independent, dependent both. So I think if I take this as a mediator, I will enter into the second day's module 2 or 3. So rather than taking that, what I am saying is these two are largely independent variables, and risk taking is your dependent variable. Correct. Okay, and if you are little conscious about the topics, so the topic deliberately for this session is called as higher order constructs. Correct. So now if you have understood the concept of construct, I've said you that there is, if you look at this MS window also, so there are constructs which are called as zero order construct. Correct. So if I draw a latent variable and three observed items, three error terms, this entire thing will be called as a zero order construct. Correct. If you look at the PPT, I have written some points probably up or down. So largely we have construct which are zero order, second order, third order, and first order. First order I am keeping little separate than zero, second, and third, because the first order largely is responsible for discriminant validity. And these three, if I have to maybe sum it up, I will say convergent validity. It can be third, fourth, fifth, but largely we do not go above second. So I am not even counting third order, and I am saying and so on. Right. So basically, if I talk about the types of constructs that we have in MS, we start with a zero order and then we jump on to a second order. And the objective of these constructs is to confirm the convergent validity. or is to determine the convergent validity. Whereas there is a slight variation in terms of these numbers. So I am just saying that if you have to check the discriminant validity, you go for the first order construct. Anybody who has done something in the past on this, who can tell me what are these two and why is the nomenclature like zero, second, and then first? Because some of you initially raised hand that we have seen AMAS, we have done some hands-on. Do we have those participants available?
Sir, I have used a MOS for my analysis in my PhD, but I don't know about second order and third order constructs.
चलो
So,
कोई बात नहीं. What is zero and first that you know?
no, neither of them.
चलिए, you are not even aware of that. चलिए, now if I show you a small diagram, if you can draw it. अभी हम data file की बात नहीं कर रहे. We are just using these tool packs to create. Now I told you, if I use this duplicate, I can create a clone of this. So exactly a clone of this, exactly a clone of this. So abhi ke liye, if you look at the screen, I can very easily say that my screen has got 3 zero order constructs. Now for the purpose of our understanding, now let us do one thing. Let us upload that data file on this AMAS interface. Correct? The way to do that is, this is the tab A8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. A8. The moment you put your cursor on this, it will say select data file, comma files. So I click on this. So automatically there is a file which is there, but I can just go on file name. If I have to select, it's just opening, and I can browse the file location and just upload that file on this. I don't know whether my system is slow or all your systems are pretty slow. So, and browse window will open. For example, I have to look at the location of that same data file which I have shared. So I will look at the location and I will say this is the demo file, and I will just open this file and I say okay. So now you can see, if I upload it, it will show group number 1 demo file .sav and is 142 divided by 142, which means it has 142 different entries. File name is this. अभी यहाँ पर एक ग्रुपिंग वेरिएबल का ऑप्शन आता है, व्यू डेटा का ऑप्शन आता है. यू कैन व्यू डेटा ऑल्सो इफ यू क्लिक ऑन दिस. Grouping variable is generally used if you want to split the file into 2 or more groups. If you group it, then you will have group 1, group 2, group 3. That will be used if you are doing something called as moderating variable. Correct? जब आप moderating variable का concept समझेंगे, then you generally have to group this file, and then you look at the comparison between two files. You can group the file based upon any categorical moderator. Categorical moderator means where you have a nominal moderator, for example age or gender or experience, and you want to see the relationship of age between independent and dependent or something like that. अभी के लिए हम इस पे नहीं जा रहे हैं. अभी के लिए हम लोग सिर्फ अपलोड कर रहे हैं, and we will see this is okay, this is okay. You just say okay. Correct? Now my file has been attached with this AMAS file. I told you there is a button called as C3. If you look at these, there are 4 5 small maybe files or tiles you can see. You click on this. Now you can see HF1, HF2, HF3. So all your variables which are there in the data file are there. Since in the data file there is no labels, I showed you now. In the data file I have not used any label. Since there is no label, so that is why this is looking like an empty kind of space. If there are labels, the labels will come here. Correct? So now what I do is, these are the rectangles. Rectangles represents observed variables, and as I have told you that my assumption is, or my beginning point is, I am hypothetically imagining that there is a construct called as holistic frame which can be captured using these 6 statements HF1 to HF6, which means that the construct number 1 should have 6 items. That means that this construct I have to add 2 more, 3 more. As of now, I will just delete this. There is some overlapping. सबको delete कर देते हैं एक बारी. Or you can do undo, or you can just erase like this I'm doing, and then maybe if you can pull it little down. So these are only 5, so I have to add one more. So again I have to select this. So now this is selected. So if I click on this, now it gets selected. It means I have to add one additional observed statement. So now I have what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Correct. One thing you have to ensure is that all these error terms automatically 1 is being assigned regression weight of 1, and out of these many statements, regression weight of 1 must be on either one of the statements. So there is 1 on this. So अभी के लिए क्या करना है, अभी हमें now I have to assign these variables to these boxes. There are 2 ways. One is I just click on this, drag it, and the moment it becomes red, I drop it here. I click on HF2, I drag it, and I drop it inside the box. The moment it becomes HF2, HF3, I drag it. So I can drag 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Easy. The second option can be, I may like to, maybe I delete one from here and add one more, and manually I right click or I double click on this. The moment I double click on this, text के अंदर I have to give variable name, but here I have to be very, very cautious that it has to be HF6, exactly the same which is in the data file, and then I say okay. I think the objective is to name these variables. If you manually name them, it has to be ditto as it is what is the name, but in order to avoid any typing mistake, you generally drag and drop. Correct. So all these 6 statements are now named as HF1 to HF6, and these are called as unobserved because error term को भी आपने observe नहीं किया, and this is a latent variable you have not observed. So I told you, in order to name these unobserved variables, you have an option called as plugin name unobserved variables. It will automatically give E1, E2, E3, E4, E4, E5, E6. So error terms are different. If you want to change these names, you can manually change. For my comfort, I will say F1 की जगह I say holistic frame पूरा. You see, I have just entered so that it looks good in the eclipse. So holistic frame, I close it now. Now this is now called as a zero order construct. अगर मुझे zero order construct की check करनी है construct validity, correct? Now this is a zero order construct. I will just close it as of now. So construct validity check करने के लिए what do I need? Now I have to go to the theoretical part once again. Not this one, this one. So basically I have to fulfill 2 conditions. I have to fulfill 2 conditions in order to establish a convergent validity. First condition is the value of the construct reliability should be more than 0.7. Again, their rule of thumb, if it is 0.69, you will not say I will not do that, but technically these are considered as the benchmarks, the thresholds, and you work upon these. And then there is a value called as average variance explained. Basically what is it? Variance explained का मतलब है you are trying to explain. Now, which is independent, which is dependent? You are explaining HF through this, explaining HF through this. So, average variance explained by this factor should be more than 0.5, correct? And the third condition, CR should be more than AVE, करेक्ट? तो अगर ये तीनों कंडीशंस हमारी फुलफिल होती हैं, देन वी कॉल इट एज we have satisfied the construct validity, or we have established construct validity. I'm sure these things will be taught and discussed tomorrow again, because tomorrow it is CFA, and one of the essential component of CFA is convergent and discriminant, करेक्ट? और जो अभी मैंने पहले आपको बताया बात, डिस्क्रिमिनेंट का मतलब है whether two constructs are different from each other. Convergent का मतलब है these two values or these 6 statements they converge in this, correct? Discriminant का मतलब है if I have another construct, for example with 4 statements or 5 6, correct? If I have another construct, so how this construct is, how much different is this from this? अगर दोनों कंस्ट्रक्ट के बीच में हाई कोवेरियंस या कोरिलेशन होगा, then automatically if you understand EFA, you will have cross loadings in the regression values or factor loading values. That means the statements, there is a mistake. Either people have not, respondents have not understood the statements correctly, or there is a statement which is confusing and it is being placed in both the variables. So हम चाहते हैं कि different constructs के बीच में discriminant हो, within a construct there has to be convergent. So if I have to look at convergent validity, then I look at 1, 2 and 3 things. And if I have to establish discriminant validity, then I look at another thing called as maximum shared variance. मतलब कि अगर दो हैं मेरे पास कंस्ट्रक्ट, तो दोनों के बीच में जो वेरिएंस शेयर्ड हो रहा है, मैक्सिमम शेयर्ड वेरिएंस की वैल्यू एवरेज वेरिएंस एक्सप्लेंट से कम होनी चाहिए. Now these terms are looking little difficult, but we need not to worry. We have a lot of plugins, a lot of support, a lot of help, a lot of Excel sheets to help us. तो अभी के लिए मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ, I am just doing, so let me explain you maybe the things a little more theoretically. So if I look at this I am calling as a zero order construct. Similarly, this is another construct which is zero order. So now if I have to again assign values, so I may say strategic thrust is being represented by this ST1, ST2. Are you able to perform all these things along with me? Correct. Now I can again use name unobserved. अभी थोड़ा छोटा है तो I can use this in order to reshape all of them and look it little more pretty. ठीक है जी. और इसको वापस ड्रॉप करके I can rename it F1. So I am saying F1 is strategic thrust. STRAT. If you do not put enter, it will go in one row. So अभी के पास के लिए मेरे पास क्या हो गया, I have got 2 zero order constructs. Similarly, in my data file I have another variable, so I may draw another construct. अब उस construct की कितनी statements थी? If I know this data file, so I have HF1 to HF6, ST1 to ST6, and RT has only 4 statements. So I may draw another construct which has 1, 2, 3, 4 items. If I want to make it little more pleasant, I may do this, or I can put it in the same order like I have put these two. Correct. Again I can open this. So one more thing I told you, that B3 tells you the variables which you have used in the model. So if I click on B2, now it will add all these error terms, HF, so all variables which are in the model as of now. So you will see observed and latent and error terms, everything is a part of this small pop-up box. So if I enlarge it a bit, so you can see all these are here. So if I now add the statements in the third construct, RT1, are you able to perform these things along with me or not? I am naming it as risk taking. Anybody, are you able to draw these three constructs so far? We are doing both the things simultaneously. We are understanding the theory, the numbers, and we are trying to plot these constructs on the canvas so that we are able to practically do things. I have got one yes, so thank you so much. So basically, if I look at this now, I can use all these options to reshape, to do to things, make things little better and all that. For example, I want to make it little more bigger, more smaller, or I want to drag this, I just make it little far. So I can preserve symmetry and pull it like this. So all these things we can do, correct? So they are not much important, but actually good, Ashok ji, you are following me. So I have got as of now 3 zero order constructs which are mapped or which are taken from the data file, correct? Now for example, now if I want to run this model, let us see what does it say, correct? So we have done 3 4 5 things. The first thing was that squares for the observed or rectangles for the observed, eclipse for the latent, and attached error terms for each of the constructor, correct? 1 2 3, and regression weight of 1 with each error term. Any one regression weight in any one of the arrows from latent to the observed, one is here, one is here, one is here, so it's fine. Now let us understand what are we supposed to do. We are supposed to find out or report three things whenever we talk about convergent validity. एक मिनट, उसका भी आपको मैं बता देता हूँ. Let me write it on the PPT. So along with this, I have told you now that in order to establish a convergent validity, we have to report CR, AVE, and MSV. Along with that, we have to look at two more things. One is called as regression values. Let me say control. Things to report. Regression values. इसके अंदर आप कुछ नहीं करोगे. You will only report p value. अब इसके अंदर how many regressions are we running? 1 2 3 4 5 6. 1 2 3 4 5 6. 1 2 3 4. So we are running 16 regression. So we have to look at 16 p values. That every time holistic frame is able to predict HF1, holistic frame is able to predict HF2, holistic frame is able to predict this. So there will be 16 regressions we are running. So we have to report a table which contains the p values and the beta values. Again, anybody who can tell me, if you have to run a regression, a normal regression, what are the things that we report? Anybody? If we perform a regression analysis, what are the things that we report?
So the value of R square.
Mm-hmm.
and
R square.
standardized coefficients and their p-values.
Very good. So we look at largely four things. If it is multiple regression, we look at R square. Correct. R square means percentage of variance explained. Then we look at beta values. Beta can be of two types. One is unstandardized, one is standardized. Unstandardized beta is used to write a regression equation. Correct. And standardized beta, if it is a multiple regression, is used to compare the, what do you call as, effect of each of the independent variable. Correct. So standardized beta, and along with that we report something called as F or ANOVA, where we say जो आपका R square है, whether it is significant or not. Along with every standardized beta, we report p value. Correct. So we report four things largely: R square, ANOVA table, beta values or standardized beta, and p values. Correct. So again we will get all four values here. If I click on this button, we will get all the values. So number one thing that we have to report is, we have to report the regression values, beta values, standardized beta, and the p values. Second thing that we have to report is the same thing that I have written in this slide. Ye all, if I copy this, second thing, I have not bothered about how does it look like. And the third thing that we have to report is the model fit indices. Okay. Or model fit summary, I write it. Right. तो तीन चीजें हमें यहाँ पर रिपोर्ट करनी है. वन इज द रिग्रेशन वैल्यूज, सेकंड इज द कन्वर्जेंट वैलिडिटी के लिए these three things, and if it is discriminant also, then this, I think there is one more also. MSV के साथ ASV भी आता है. ASV should also be slightly more than, so I am saying 2, 1 and 3. Correct. We are generally interested in reporting these three things. Now let us try to calculate each of the three and see how do we do that. एक काम और कर लेते हैं पहले, उससे कर ही देते हैं इसको रिपोर्ट. So normally if you click on this button called as analyze properties or analysis properties, so in the first tab there are, I think, 7-8 tabs. At the top you can see estimation, numerical, bias, output, bootstrap, permutation, random. So in the estimation tab we tell that which method of regression to find out. So we'll say method of maximum likelihood, and at the bottom if you see there are three things written: fit the saturated and independence model, fit the saturated model only, fit neither model. So basically जो हम बात करेंगे model fit की, so in the model fit we generally are getting a model. So what does it do? It tries to create a chi-square value. So it has, we have an expected value and we have a actual value. Correct. So predicted and actual value के बीच में it tries to find out what is the difference, what is the significant difference, and using chi-square test it creates some model summaries. Now it gives you three kinds of values. One is the value of the default model, one is the value of the saturated model, one is the value of the independence model. So basically saturated model is the model which has the perfect values, that it, the model could have been this perfect. Independence could be the worst model, and your model is called as the default model. So what kind of values do we need? So we need three types of values, our model, so that we can compare what is the range. Saturated is the higher limit, independence is the lower limit, and default model is the center जो हमारी value आएंगी. So it should be somewhere in between. And other things we do not need. हाँ, एक चीज अच्छी है यहाँ पर, estimate means and intercept. Now this button has two usage. One is it will calculate the means and intercept of all the variables. But second thing, it gives an advantage. In case you have any missing value in the data file and you do not select on this, then this model will not work. So if you click on this, if your data file has any missing value, it will still work. As of now, I do not need this and I do not have any missing value, so I am not selecting this. I will tell you how do we do that. In the output, we normally require, इसको भी शायद नहीं चाहिए, we normally require standardized estimates. अब these are what? These are the beta values जो हमने बात की. Regression weight निकालना है तो we need standardized estimates. We also need squared multiple correlation. This is basically to calculate the discriminant validity. So convergent के लिए ये, discriminant के लिए, rather we need both of them together. Correct. बाकी चीजें अभी हमें कुछ नहीं चाहिए. These are the other things which we require if we have to go in the further SEM. अभी हम SEM में नहीं जा रहे, अभी हम सिर्फ convergent validity पे ही कर रहे हैं काम और discriminant के ऊपर. So we select on these two. I will tell you there is another important feature called as modification indices. I will talk about it later. अभी के लिए we'll close this. So select these two, we close this and we say run. It says there is a warning. Proceed with the analysis, cancel the analysis. Why? Because it is saying that there are 3 zero order constructs and they are not related to each other. Are they unrelated or are they related? If they are related and you have forgotten to add something, for example, you want to create independent dependent or you want to create correlation between these 3, then you can do that. Otherwise, अगर आपको अभी नहीं check करना है वो, so you will simply avoid it and you will say proceed with analysis. Now it will ask you where do you want to save this file. So you can create a folder somewhere and you may save everything there only. For example, as of now there is a folder called as current research and I am saying this file as demo1. It is already defined demo1, so I will just replace it. Yes. How many of you are able to do it till now? Irender, you have raised your hand. Please ask. There are multiple hands which are raised. There is something to ask or you are able to perform it? All 3 of you.
We were able to do it, sir.
Okay, but did you get any error so far?
Not yet.
So if you click on this, as of now I got an error.
I think I missed something.
Variable strategic thrust is invalid because it contains invalid character.
Sir, same type of error I am also getting.
Good. So I have to look at it, what is it, and then I have to resolve it. So strategic thrust के अंदर, if I double click on this and see what is the error, ST1, ST2, ST3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Let me rename it. Maybe there is some space or something.
Yeah, we can't have space, sir, I think.
No, ऊपर हमने दिया है space, नीचे भी दिया है.
अच्छा.
Let me try it once again. Invalid character. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let me name it as A. Let's see, does it work? Risk taking also. I think space is a problem. You are right. Probably we have to remove space from everywhere.
Yes.
Thank you. If it works. When do we get to see that it is working? The moment this red button becomes active. Now can you see this red button is active? What I can do is I can go back and now if I can click here, I will see my output. If I click here, I will see my input. Now input के अंदर I will just rename it as strategic thrust without space. So this red button means this is the view. You can see it says view the output path diagram. So I click on this. So now it will show a lot of values on the top. Now what are these values? Now these are the values which generally we get in the regression equations. Correct. Now what are these values? These are the values 0.88, 0.83, 1, 0.93, 0.79. These are the values of
Factor loading.
unstandardized beta. These are the error and these are the values of R square. Are you getting it? The moment I click on the standardized one, now these becomes the standardized values, and these are nothing but the square of this. These are R square now. Correct. For now this equation, so most of the analysis will be done on standardized estimates. So there is one more beauty here. For example, in the input file, we have frozen the regression weight of 1 here. So if I change this regression weight of 1 from here to here, then all the values will change accordingly. Correct. Basically, what does it work? It basically looks for the constraints, the degree of freedoms. So it says that I should know at least one regression weight. Based upon that, I can predict all others. So if I change from 1 from here to here, there is a possibility that all these 6 values will change. But the good part is that if you click on the standardized estimates, if you click on this, now these values will not be changed, and the standardized estimates will remain same. Can you see this? 0.80, 0.79, 0.80, 0.83 and all that. Correct. And since it is an equation, it's a regression equation which has only one independent variable and one error term. So if you square of 0.80, R square is shown here, 0.63, 0.79 square point this. So basically, if you want to see them, you can see, you can ignore them. We are more interested in knowing these values and the p values along with these values. अभी तो मैं दिख रहा है 0.8, 0.79, 0.76, whatever. So how do we look at the p values? P values will tell whether these standardized beta are significant or not. In order to check the p values, we have to look at the view text. I click on this. This is the MS text output window. Now there are multiple things that will be shown here. If you look at analysis summary, perform on this date at this time, this file name and all that, notes for the group. This model is recursive, sample size of 142. Now a lot of time people ask, although it has nothing to do with our analysis, but recursive model is a kind of model where there is no loop which is forming. Recursive का मतलब है something leads to something, something leads to something, but it does not come back. Correct. So as of now, there is no loop which is being formed. So this is recursive, and MS works upon recursive models only. Okay. Notes for the group. These are the variable summary. What are the total variables? So observed variables are also called as endogenous variable. Remember in the previous workshop, some of you attended, we talked about the problem of endogeneity. So जब exogenous variable endo बन जाए तो वो problem आती है. But observed variables are called as endogenous, and exogenous are the latent variables or which are pre-predicted. So all the error terms and these three latent variables are called as exogenous. So number of variables 35, observed 16, unobserved 19, exogenous 19, endogenous 16. I think we all know this. Parameter summary. कितने पैरामीटर्स हैं आपके पास? 19 हमारे फिक्स्ड पैरामीटर्स हैं, 13 हमारे टू बी प्रिडिक्टेड हैं, अनलेबल्ड. नाउ 19 13 कैसे है, आई थिंक वी ऑल कैन, इसकी इतनी जरूरत नहीं है, बट स्टिल. सो इफ यू लुक एट योर डेटा फाइल इनपुट वाले के अंदर, सो 16 हेयर जहाँ पे हमने 1 1 लगाया हुआ है एरर टर्म्स, एंड 3 1 1 1 हेयर. सो 19 वैल्यूज आर fixed, 19 regression weights are fixed and 13s are unlabeled, so total 32 regression weights are there. हमने कोवेरियंस कोई नहीं निकाला अभी तक, वेरिएंस निकाले 19, वो सब के सब अनलेबल्ड थे. करेक्ट. इंटरसेप्ट कोई नहीं निकाला, मीन कोई नहीं निकाला, समथिंग समथिंग. Notes for the model is the most important thing. Here generally there is some error. If there is an error, it shows it here many times. तो यहाँ पे हमको नॉर्मली काई स्क्वेयर देखना होता है, काई स्क्वेयर एंड डिग्री ऑफ फ्रीडम. करेक्ट. डिग्री ऑफ फ्रीडम इज द डिफरेंस बिटवीन डिस्टिंक्ट सैंपल मोमेंट एंड पैरामीटर्स टू बी एस्टिमेटेड. तो टोटल 136 मोमेंट थे हमारी पूरी फाइल के अंदर और 32 पैरामीटर हमने निकाले हैं. सो 32 निकाले हैं, इसका मतलब 104 हमारे पास डिग्री ऑफ फ्रीडम है. करेक्ट. सो 32 आइटम्स और 32 वैल्यूज आर टू प्रेडिक्टेड आउट ऑफ 136, and rest we have already. So there is a degree of freedom for 104. So finally we are not interested even in this, we are more interested in knowing the estimates. So जो मैं आपको बोल रहा था, estimates के अंदर भी हम लोग p वैल्यू को देखना चाहते हैं. these p वैल्यू,
I think that your voice is breaking.
my voice is breaking.
Now fine.
it's clear, sir.
Okay, probably because of network issue. So should I go back and tell you where did the problem start?
So tell from the p values.
Yeah, so I was basically telling you that we have to report three things. Correct. The first thing that I showed you is the p values. So you can just copy this table and you can paste it, and you can say all my 3 zero order constructs have good standardized beta, and this is significant. P is, if it is 0.05 less than 0.005, so automatically it shows star star star. And the good part in MS output is that anything which has a definition, which has a description, it will create a hyperlink automatically. You can see. So if I click on this, it shows what is the meaning of triple star. So it says the probability of getting the critical ratio as large as this is less than 0.001, which means the p value is less than 001, which means it is significant. Correct. At two-tailed. तो ऑटोमेटिकली आपको मालूम पड़ जाएगा कि इसका मीनिंग क्या है. बट इफ दिस वैल्यू इज लिटिल हायर, देन इट विल शो दिस वैल्यू. सो नॉर्मली 0.005 या 0.05 भी हम कई बार ले लेते हैं. सो यू हैव टू डिसाइड योर ओन क्रिटिकल वैल्यू हेयर, एंड इफ इट इज शोइंग ऑल स्टार, देन ऑल दीज वैल्यूज आर सिग्निफिकेंट. करेक्ट. विच मीन्स, अब इसका मतलब क्या हुआ? इसका मतलब ये हुआ that holistic frame is able to predict HF1. कितना predict कर पा रहा है? R square is 63. So 63% of change in the response of this statement is because of a latent variable holistic frame. 64% of change or variation in this variable or this statement is because of this. Did you get my point? And all these are significant because the p value is significant. Am I making sense? So we ignore the unstandardized, we look at the standardized one, and these are the beta values, these are the R squares. Since it is an what do you call a simple regression with one independent. अब इसमें लोगों को उल्टा confusion होती है that these are independent. No, HF1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they are dependent variables, and this is independent in all the cases. So I am predicting HF1 through a latent variable, a manifest variable, a hypothetical variable, एंड रेस्ट जो 0.63 के अलावा जो बचा हमारा वेरिएशन इन HF1, दैट इज बिकॉज ऑफ सम एरर। ठीक है, तो हमें उस एरर को भी देखना है। तो 0.63, 0.63, 0.64, 0.53, 0.57, सो ये सब वैल्यूज हैं आपको देखने के लिए। सो एक रूल ऑफ थंब ये बोलता है, इफ ऑल दीज वैल्यूज आर अबव 0.6 normally, then your construct is convergent. Did you get it? तो बाय चांस अगर आपको कोई वैल्यू दिखे इनमें से विच इज 0.4 और 0.3 और 0.2 और 0.5 एट टाइम्स, सो यू मे हैव टू लुक एट दैट स्टेटमेंट, क्योंकि ये वो स्टेटमेंट की वजह से हमारा मॉडल में गड़बड़ आएगी आगे। सो दैट स्टेटमेंट कैन बी डिलीटेड देन एंड देयर। डिड यू गेट इट? As of now, rule of thumb says 0.7 and above, but if you have to calculate the actual value of AVE and CR, वो कैसे कैलकुलेट होती हैं? वो इनसे कैलकुलेट होती हैं। So the value of AVE will be calculated using these values. Similarly, the value of CR will be calculated using these values. अभी हम MSU और ASU पे नहीं आए हैं बिकॉज दैट इज डिस्क्रिमिनेंट और वो फर्स्ट ऑर्डर पे आ रहा है। अभी हम सिर्फ बात कर रहे हैं जीरो ऑर्डर की, और ये बाकी दो को मैं नहीं देख रहा हूँ अभी। आई एम लुकिंग ओनली एट द फर्स्ट जीरो ऑर्डर कंस्ट्रक्ट। इवन इफ इट इज नॉट देयर, आई विल नॉट बी बोदर्ड। करेक्ट। तो अभी के लिए मैंने क्या किया है, आई हैव क्रिएटेड वन जीरो ऑर्डर कंस्ट्रक्ट just for my understanding and to see what are these values. So basically it is nothing but it is 6 regression equations which are running and it is giving me the R square and the beta values. ठीक है जी, ये तो हुआ जीरो ऑर्डर कंस्ट्रक्ट के अंदर। ठीक है, तो हमने यहाँ पर जाके एस्टिमेट्स के अंदर सब वैल्यूज हमने देख ली। सिमिलरली एरर टर्म के साथ भी वेरिएंस इसने कैलकुलेट किया है। नाउ इफ यू लुक एट दिस 0.413, 0.312, 0.322, सो ये जो वेरिएंस है दिस इज बीन एक्सप्लेन्ड बाय द एरर टर्म। जो वेरिएंस बच गया था वहाँ पे, जो एक्सप्लेन नहीं कर पाया होलिस्टिक फ्रेम, that goes to the error term 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. So these are the error terms. So this is also important. Correct. Now in the model fit, as I told you, it will give you a lot of tables and every table will have 3 different models. Correct. Every table will have 3 different models. So जो सबसे important value होती है हमारी model fit के अंदर, that is the value of C mean. C mean का मतलब है chi square minimum discrepancy. तो C mean का अगर हम क्लिक करते हैं तो automatically it will tell you what is the meaning of C mean. C mean says C mean is the minimum value of discrepancy, and if you want to read more you read this. So basically there is a chi square test और जो मिनिमम डिस्क्रिपेंसी आई हमारी ऑब्जर्व्ड chi square वैल्यूज में और एक्सपेक्टेड वैल्यूज में, उसकी जो मिनिमम वाली थी वो ये वैल्यूज हैं। करेक्ट। डिग्री ऑफ फ्रीडम इज 104। तो एक रूल ऑफ थंब या फिर रिसर्च पेपर्स या फिर अच्छे अच्छे ऑथर्स, दे ऑल से दैट यू हैव टू रिपोर्ट a value which is called as C mean by DF. By looking at this C mean, I do not know whether it is good or bad, because I need to look at C mean in the light of degree of freedom, because degree of freedom can be high or low. It can be 100, it can be 20, it can be 30, whatever. So I normally, the first thing that I report in the model fit is C mean by degree of freedom, ये value C mean divided by degree of freedom. इसका इंपॉर्टेंस क्या है, यहाँ पर लिखा हुआ है रूल ऑफ थंब, all these values. So it says a range of 2 or between 1 to 3 or less than 3 is good. Some authors also say as good as 5 also, Marsh and Hockever, Carmines and McKeever, Witten and others. So a lot of authors have their own theory, their own economics. So normally rule of thumb says less than 3, but some people say less than 5, some people say between 1 to 3. So अगर ये वैल्यू आपकी C mean by DF, if it is less than 3, that means most of your other indicators will be in range. तो अब बाकी जो इंडिकेटर्स होते हैं वो दो तरह के इंडिकेटर्स होते हैं मॉडल फिट के अंदर. We generally call them as goodness of fit and badness of fit. Some authors said this is not sufficient, C mean by DF, so we have to go further beyond. तो गुडनेस ऑफ फिट के अंदर कि ऐसे कुछ indicators, again the values of those indicators are derived from this only. C mean by DF से निकलती सब values, but then they apply some other formulas. Some people say that GFI. Now GFI is goodness of fit indices or goodness of fit index. Now it was created by so and so in 1984. इसकी वैल्यू कितनी होनी चाहिए? It should be 0.95 or it should be above 0.9. Similarly, you have AGFI. Similarly, you have NFI. Similarly, you have IFI. So there are some baseline comparisons which are called as goodness of fit, and then there are some badness of fit, and the most common badness of fit is RMSEA, root mean square error approximation. So again rule of thumb says RMSEA की value should be less than 0.05. so अगर ये कम है, again आपको क्या देखना है इसके अंदर? default is your model, saturated is the best, independent is the worst. so आपका जो मॉडल है it should be in between. तो कह रहे हैं सैचुरेटेड मॉडल के अंदर सी मीन की वैल्यू 000 होनी चाहिए, and the worst model should have this, but yours is in between these two. So it's like you have got an upper limit and lower limit and you verify. Similarly in GFI also, the best is 1, the worst is 0.351. Similarly in IFI or NFI, the best is 1, the worst is 0. So your model is this. So आपको जो भी वैल्यू रिपोर्ट करनी है वो डिफॉल्ट मॉडल की रिपोर्ट करनी है. I think there is a query, I can see it. Mahmoodi, I have said RMSEA should be less than 0.05. Correct? Any questions so far? अभी के लिए अगर आप इसके अंदर जाके इफ यू डिलीट दीज, क्योंकि हमने इसके ऊपर कुछ नहीं काम किया, हमने सिर्फ एक जीरो ऑर्डर को रन किया है और देखा है कि जीरो ऑर्डर के अंदर हमें क्या क्या चीजें रिपोर्ट करनी है. So I have told you we have to report 3 things. One is the regression weights and p value. Second is the model summary, goodness of it, and the third is the value of A, V, E and CR. And at times they become little important. अब A, V, E और CR को निकालने के कुछ formulas हैं. I think I have written those formulas here. Now this is the formula to calculate the value of CR and AVE. Now this is nothing but beta. यहाँ पे lambda लिखा हुआ है but it is beta. So summation beta whole square divided by summation beta whole square plus 1 minus summation beta square. So these are two formulas to calculate CR and AVE. So you can do it manually also, and there are some shortcuts also. CR और AVE निकालने का ये फॉर्मूला है मैनुअल. ये लैम्डा इज बेसिकली रिटन हियर बट इट इज एक्चुअली बीटा. जो हमारी स्टैंडर्डाइज बीटा की वैल्यू आई है ना, वो यहाँ पुट करनी है हमें इन ऑल द केसेस. इफ यू पुट बीटा वैल्यूज हियर देन इट विल गिव यू द वैल्यू ऑफ CR एंड AVE. मुझे बताओ अभी तक कहाँ डाउट है, क्या कुछ क्वेश्चंस हैं, बिकॉज आई एम नॉट गेटिंग मच रिस्पॉन्सेज एंड आई कांट सी द फेसेस ऑल्सो. Any doubt so far? We have only touched zero order construct. अभी हम फर्स्ट पे नहीं आए, सेकंड पे नहीं आए, थर्ड पे तो शायद जाएंगे भी नहीं हम लोग. Nobody has a question?
Sir, when we change the estimation method, so suppose if I take unweighted least square or generalized least squares, so the lot of options get removed, like it doesn't show CFI TLI. उस situation में can I use some other modification indices in reporting?
Modification indices is a different thing. You are talking about
Sorry,
goodness
sir,
of fit indices.
Yes, goodness of fit indices.
Absolutely. See, it is always recommended that you show at least one GFI and one goodness of fit and one badness of fit. और badness of fit में शायद 2 indicators होते हैं. Goodness of fit में I think there are about 4 to 5. So it is recommended along with C mean by DF, you report 2 more indicators, because at time you say, some people say that C mean by DF comes by chance or because of some other reasons. So along with that you have to report minimum 1. So you can report any other, but आप दूसरा estimation method क्यों use कर रहे हैं, that is something that you have to justify. Why are you not using MLE? Why are you using something else? बताओ मुझे क्यों
Sir,
यूज
most
कर
of
रहे
the
हो?
cases, Likert scales do not have normality. So in such an assumption, we will have to shift to some other
चलो,
estimation methods.
if that is your rationale, it is okay, but then it has to be backed up with a lot of research. It has to
Okay.
be justified, that whether that method ignores the condition of normality or not. Correct.
Okay.
So there are 4-5 methods which are there. ठीक है जी?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Good question, but you have to have a rationale of it.
Sir, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Sir, I have read about goodness of fit indices, but I've never read about badness of fit indices. What does it mean, and can you please throw some more light on
See,
this?
to be very honest, I have not much of understanding about how do we calculate it, but it is a measure. It is an indicator. See, what are we doing? We are basically saying that there are 3 models, and our model is so and so close to the best model. There are 3 models. One is the independent, one is the saturated, and one is default. So हमारा कोशिश है कि we should be close to the saturated, the best model. And in order to be that, so we look at the good things that can make us close to that model. So along with reporting C mean by DF, we report certain other indicators by calculating some small adjustments in those. So sometime you will have some formula like divided by n, add +1, reported something. But some people say that how far we are from the worst model. Correct. It should not happen that the good model and the bad model have no difference. They are almost close. So it should be reported that our model is away from the worst model. Correct. And that is why we use something called as badness of fit. मतलब कि जो सबसे बेकार मॉडल है, इंडिपेंडेंट मॉडल है, उससे कितने हम अवे हैं. And since it is a reverse measure, so we look for the values which are the reverse. So we do not look for value which is close to 0.1. So we look for the value which is close to 0. For example, अगर आप यहाँ पर RMSEA पे click करोगे, so you will be able to read it once. For example, it says FO incorporates no penalty for model complexity and will tend to favor models with many parameters. In comparing two nested models, FO will never favor the simpler model. So and so author has suggested compensating for the effect model by dividing it with degree of freedom for testing the model. So basically उसने FO divide by D square root करके एक estimation दिया, और उसके बाद इसने rule of thumb ये दिया है, practical experiences has made us feel that a value of RMSEA of about 0.05 or less would indicate close fit of the model relation to the degrees of freedom. This figure is based on subjective judgment. It cannot regard. So if you want to read more, you can read it from here. But whatever my understanding is, it is basically telling you that your model is away from the worst model, and it's a slightly opposite indicator of model summary.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Chali, now shall I go to the second order and then the first order?
Yes, sir.
ठीक है. And after that I will show you how do we calculate the value of AVE and CR using a small Excel sheet. ठीक है जी. So अभी के लिए what we did is we checked our first zero order construct. Now if I again draw 3 constructs, तो मुझे थोड़ा टाइम लगेगा ड्रॉ करने में. What I do is I will just do this and I will do this. Now let me close this. I will create another one. Now technically first order basically means you are looking at the correlation between all 3 constructs and you want to prove that they are least correlated. If they are highly correlated with each other, that means there is a problem of cross loading. Correct. There is a problem that the responses are given haphazardly, or there is a confusion in some statements, or the data is not trustworthy, something like that. Correct. Now if I created another, एक तो निकाल सकते हैं यहाँ से हम लोग, because the second construct also has same 6 items. So I will create second here, and I can overwrite. So for example, if I now drag st1 and drop it here, so hf1 is overwritten. Correct. So second construct भी अपना बन रहा है.
So meanwhile, hello.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Sometimes we can see that GFI value is around 0.8 and CFI value is more than that. Or Cmin value is near about 2 to 3. It has also been said somewhere that it will give a good model fit, it will give a value of good model. Like if Cmin value is around 2 or 3, between 2 or 3, is it any criteria about it?
See, if somebody has to reject your paper, he can reject it, but I have never heard any paper being rejected because of this. See, ideally speaking, we are slightly biased as a researcher also, so we look for things which are in our favor. So if out of 5 goodness of indicators, only 2 are showing 0.9 and above, then it is perfectly fine. But many times it happens that if we do any manipulation or something like that, our Cmin by DF becomes less than 3. But the other goodness of fit indicator do not come close to 0.9. They are 0.6, 0.7, something. So there is a challenge.
So if the value is around 0.8 or 0.9, then it will be okay?
I have seen paper being published with 0.7 also.
Okay.
But then you have to have a very strong theoretical backing, a theoretical rationale. Correct. So if you do not have a theory and you are trying to propose something which is out of the blue, and your stats is also not maybe coming in line with that, then somebody will ask a question. But if it is 0.8 around that, I think there is no big challenge in that.
Sir, I have read somewhere that there are 3 categories of model fit indices: incremental, parsimonious, and absolute. And if we choose one from each of those categories and they are meeting the threshold values, then that will indicate that the model is fit.
See, the best way is this only. So you have 3 different categories, you choose one from each of the 3. But I'm saying in the worst case, maybe in one of the categories, parsimonial, you don't get the value that you desire, then you can show the other one. Because many times people are not finicky about it. People are more finicky about the theoretical judgment or theoretical rationale that you are giving.
Okay, sir.
Correct. It is ideal. The way you are saying is the ideal, but it may or may not work. And that is why I have seen people that they spend more time in data cleaning, rather I say data fabrication at times, in order to make sure that their model becomes very fit. If they spend a little more energy in deleting one statement and then justifying, or adding another constraint or any other variable and justifying, it is a slightly better thing, rather than you completely manipulating your data and showing what you want to show. Whatever is coming out, if you can justify it with another theory or another justification, it still is better. Okay, na?
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
So here what I am doing now, I think there are very few who are participating and involved. Others probably it is a new thing, they are the first timer. So basically I am doing is, I told you this is a select button, so I will just select this and this. Now I want to draw covariance between these two, so I will click on is draw covariances. If I make little look beautiful, I think it is already perfect. Now I can unselect. So now what I have done is, I am trying to verify 2 things. I am using zero order as well as the first order. So what I am asking is that first tell me the cohesiveness between this and between this, simultaneously tell me how different are these two and these two and these two, since there are three covariances. Correct. जब इसकी वैल्यू अनस्टैंडर्डाइज होती है तो कोवेरियंस बोलते हैं. द मोमेंट इट बिकम्स स्टैंडर्डाइज इट इज कॉल्ड एज कोरिलेशन. when there is a two dimensional or two sided arrow between two latent variables, so it becomes correlation when we look at the standardized value. So I may use sometimes covariance, sometimes correlation also. Correct. अभी के लिए मेरा मॉडल लगता है पूरा है, so I can again run it. There is more than one variable named holistic frame. Oh, I'm so sorry, I have named it same. So you can see if you make some mistake, it will tell you. So this name is strategic thrust. Correct. Array term is again even is more than one. Yes. So I have to maybe these array terms I may change. So I have already 10, so I will say 11, 12, 13, correct. So now it looks good. So all array terms. See, you must have to ensure that there is no name which is repeated. All the names must be discrete. Correct. So there is no space. These are all set. 1 is there. Covariance is drawn. So let me check analyze property. I need these two. Okay. I can simply run this. Since I am not saving it separately, so it is overwriting the previous one that I have run. Now you can see this has run successfully. There is an output button which you can see. Many times we make a mistake. We drop some items here and there and then it shows error. So many times we have to maybe zoom it out like this and see if there is something dropped outside the canvas. And we keep on saying that there are multiple errors coming in. So look at this, and it should look very neat and clean. This model should look. Now in the output, along with these, again I have only looked at standardized value. Along with these values, beta and r square, I can also see 0.27, 0.10, minus 0.08. So I can see the value of correlation between these two. In unstandardized, it will be covariances. Correct.
So, is there any technical difference between covariance and correlation?
नहीं, टेक्निकली मैथमेटिकल डिफरेंस है, कैलकुलेट करने में फॉर्मूला अलग है. रिग्रेशन, सॉरी, द मोमेंट यू से आई एम स्टैंडर्डाइजिंग कोवेरियंस, इट इज कॉल्ड एज कोरिलेशन. कोवेरियंस होता है बिटवीन कंस्ट्रक्ट्स और कोरिलेशन बिटवीन मे बी वेरिएबल्स ऑल्सो और आइटम्स ऑल्सो. तो टेक्निकल डिफरेंस बहुत सारे हैं इसके अंदर, बट एज ऑफ नाउ लेट्स नॉट गेट इनटू दैट. द मोमेंट यू से स्टैंडर्डाइज कोवेरियंस, इट बिकम्स कोरिलेशन. ठीक है. देयर आर मल्टीपल डिफरेंसेस. तो अभी के लिए हमें वी हैव टू लुक एट दिस, एंड दिस शुड बी वेरी लेस. नाउ वेरी लेस का मतलब क्या है? इफ इट इज 0.27, इज इट लेस? इफ इट इज minus 0.08, if it is 0.01, if it is high, if it is less, what should we do? If it is, for example, 0.78 or 0.60 between any two constructs, that actually means that these two constructs are highly correlated to each other because the correlation value is very high. Maybe 0.27 is also high. If it is significant, we can say it is high, which indicates that there is a possibility that these two variables are leading to a second order construct. But if these values are uncorrelated or minimally correlated, then it is good. Correct. So अभी हमें देखनी है वैल्यू क्या? एवरेज शेयर्ड वेरिएंस और मीन शेयर्ड, MSV एंड ASV. तो वो वैल्यू निकलती है इन थ्री वैल्यूज के साथ. तो इसकी एवरेज शेड एक्सपीरियंस होगा बाकी दोनों का एवरेज करके, और हाईएस्ट वाली होगी जो दोनों में से हाईएस्ट होगी. सो वी हैव टू बेसिकली कैलकुलेट two more values, but even if you do not calculate them, you can look at it, and then you can look at the output summary and see whether this 0.27 is significant or not statistically. So output summary के अंदर again you look at the estimates. Now you have got these values. Can you see this covariance वाली values? So covariance between holistic frame and strategic thrust, the value is this, and the P is 0.006. तो तीनों की तीनों वैल्यूज इनसिग्निफिकेंट है. अगर ये 0.005 होती है, उससे कम होती, इट वुड हैव बिकम स्टार स्टार स्टार. एज ऑफ नाउ इट इज 0.309, 0.414, which means this is highly correlated because this is slightly higher. Unstandardized is 0.163, and standardized is 0.27. So this is little higher, but otherwise both of the other two are kind of insignificant. This is also insignificant at 99.95% confidence, but it is slightly correlated, correct? So if they are uncorrelated, chances are that you will be able to establish the discriminant validity also. But if it is showing the values are slightly higher, then you have to calculate AVE and MSV and क्या बोलते हैं उसको, MSV and ASV, एवरेज एंड मैक्सिमम शेड वैल्यू एंड एवरेज शेड वैल्यू. ठीक है ना? तो एवरेज शेड एंड मैक्सिमम शेड, एवरेज का मतलब होलिस्टिक फ्रेम की बाकी दो के साथ एवरेज कितनी, मैक्सिमम का मतलब किसी भी एक के साथ मैक्सिमम कितनी है. तो मैक्सिमम शेड वैल्यू एंड एवरेज शेड वैल्यू आपको दोनों कैलकुलेट करनी पड़ती है मैनुअली, एंड दैट इज नॉट वेरी डिफिकल्ट. बट सिंस वी हैव एन ऑप्शन अवेलेबल which can do all this calculation for us, we'll do it for this together, correct? But अभी के लिए I have got 3 zero order and 1 first order. First order का मतलब I am looking at the discriminant validity between these three also. रिपोर्ट क्या करना, सेम 3 things. इसके अंदर हमें आउटपुट के अंदर जाके we have to report this also, जो मैं बता रहा था आपको, कोवेरियंस एंड दीज पी वैल्यूज एंड ऊपर वाली पी वैल्यूज. सो दिस रिग्रेशन वेट्स अनस्टैंडर्डाइज, दिस कोवेरियंस अलोंग विद पी वैल्यूज, एंड देन मॉडल फिट में जाकर आपको यही करना है. नाउ यू लुक एट योर मॉडल समरी, इट इज ऑलमोस्ट द सेम 1.179, एंड देन दिस वैल्यूज GFI एंड RFI, एंड तीनों के अंदर से आप कहते हो एक लेना है तो आप ले सकते हो. यू कैन टेक वन फ्रॉम GFI, वन फ्रॉम मे बी NFI या RFI या NFI, एंड पार्सिमोनी में से यू कैन ऑल्सो टेक वन, PNFI, PCFI, P रेशियो, करेक्ट. आई थिंक बाकियों का मैंने कभी यूज नहीं किया, आई एम सो सॉरी, बट इफ देयर इज somebody who knows about ECVI, I think they are all kind of similar values, but some papers might have quoted them and they might have given the reason of this, but largely same 3 things we have to report. ठीक है जी. Now let us understand what is the meaning of second order. अब second order के मतलब, for instance we believe that holistic frame and strategic thrust के बीच में this association 0.27 is significant. हालांकि it is close to significant, 0.006 है, but if it was 0.005 or 0.005 से कम, that means they both have something in common. So in that case we could have looked at the literature and find out that is there any phenomena or any process which explains these two. And if you read the literature and if you find out something, for example, now I read a literature, now let me go to the input. I read some literature and I came up with an answer that these two represents something called as concept of strategic thinking, correct? So I double click on this, I create another variable, I call it as strategic thinking. Again स्पेस नहीं देना है मुझे. Correct. I feel strategic thinking is a bigger variable, a larger latent variable which covers these two. So that in that case I will say now this becomes my latent and these two are now my observed. And I told you ki the moment you draw an arrow from here to here, you have to compulsorily add an error term. Okay, you can add something called as unobserved variance. और अब मेरे को यहाँ पर एक पॉइंट यहाँ पर नोट करना होगा कि मुझे रिग्रेशन वेट कंपल्सरी दोनों में 1 देना है. In second order construct I have to give regression weight of 1 in both. करेक्ट. एक बार एक हटा के देखते हैं क्या होता है, दूसरे को प्रिडिक्ट कर पाता है कि नहीं कर पाता. लेट्स सी. करेक्ट. एज ऑफ नाउ फॉर द कंफर्ट पर्पस आई एम डिलीटिंग दिस. इसका कोई काम नहीं है अभी, उसको बाद में चेक करेंगे हम लोग. एज ऑफ नाउ इन दिस मॉडल नाउ I have got 2 zero order and 1 second order. So if I look at in a way, so from zero order we are getting into a second order construct. We do not enter into a first order. First order is only to check the discriminant validity, that whether the constructs are correlated or not. If they are correlated, what is the percentage of correlation? Now should I run the, again let me verify it, this. Now there is no error, but I told you in the output at times it shows the error. देखो यहाँ लिख रखा है. In the notes for the model, I told you this is important tab. The model is probably unidentified. In order to achieve it, will probably be necessary to impose 1 additional constraints. तो आपको एक और constraint add करना है, और वो कहाँ add करना है आपको? यहाँ पर. Regression rate of 1. I think there is some question. I could hear some noise. There is any doubt?
Hello?
Yeah, please go ahead. 1 minute.
Sir, sometimes it happens that we get the significant value up to the mark, but the estimates are lesser than that accordingly. So can we go ahead with that model or not?
We should. Even if the beta value is 0.2 or 0.1, but it is significant, we should go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Correct. See, there are 2 things. I told you in the previous session that many times you are you miss out or you omit some independent variables. Correct. Basically, regression का मतलब क्या है कि you have a set of independent and 1 dependent. So if you have only 1 independent variable that is able to explain very less amount, तो बाकी सारा जा रहा है error term के अंदर. Correct. So आपको error का देखना पड़ेगा कि कितना variance वहाँ जा रहा है. But it may be important that 1 is very less, but still it is very important. Normally in the field of HR and OB, you will find these values are very less. R square value बहुत कम आती है. It is only 0.15, 0.18, 0.2. Then people will ask कि only 20% is explained by this. But इंसान के behavior में there are multiple things, numerous things. If you are predicting the behavior of an individual through a questionnaire, so there can be 200 other things which you are not even capturing. And the answer to that is you perform an experimental research where you control things, where you do some manipulation in the independent and then go for the dependent. Correct. So it's a valid question that you have asked, and the answer is you must go ahead, even if it is low, but it should be significant enough.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
Yes, I think Ritu Sharma says, sir, 0.006 also insignificant. Ritu, again, if you are saying it is significant, then you have to cite a paper which says it is significant. But if you are proposing that there is a second order construct that exists and you want to prove it, then you say it is significant and I am going ahead. ठीक है ना, आपके ऊपर है ये. बट SPSS डेमोस को जो फीड करके रखा है द एल्गोरिथम, according to it, it is insignificant. Correct.
Sir, all these things depend upon the percentage value. At what percent you have applied the formula, whether it's
Absolutely.
1% or it's a 5%.
That's what I'm saying कि देखो, there is a manual way to look at the things. बट सिस्टम को बोला होगा कि एनीथिंग विच इज लेस देन 0.005 you convert it into star star star, and anything which is above you show it as it is. Then
Yes.
it is somebody's responsibility जो भी interpret कर रहा है, if he wants to take it as significant or insignificant.
Right.
But anything below 0.005 is starred. ठीक है ना?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Subhash ji. Thank you. So now I have got a second order construct, one zero order, second zero order, and second order. Now again I have to run now. There is no problem. You can see the red button activated, and in the standardized variable you have seen this also 0.46, 0.58. Again अभी इसके ऊपर same rule apply होगा. The rule of thumb which I said, look at these 7 values. If they are all above 0.6, that means this construct, this zero order construct is highly cohesive, or you have convergent validity. So second order construct के अंदर this is 0.46, this is 0.58. So दोनों का average लेते हो तो it is somewhere 0.52. Some people say it is making sense, second order बना लो, but some people say no, it is less than 0.6, so it should be dropped. तो अब इसमें सब्जेक्टिविटी है. हालांकि थ्योरी कहती है कि स्ट्रेटेजिक थिंकिंग अगर होगी आपकी तो आपका होलिस्टिक फ्रेम भी होगा और आपका स्ट्रेटेजिक थ्रस्ट भी होगा. इफ यू लुक एट द लिटरेचर ऑफ स्ट्रेटेजी एंड स्ट्रेटेजिक थिंकिंग, थ्योरी जस्टिफाइज. सो इफ यू कैन डिफेंड इट बाय थ्योरी कि दिस इज माय assumption and there is slight less value, but still I am going ahead with this, it is fine. But you have to be little cautious in this. ठीक है, अगर ये दोनों 0.5 से ऊपर हैं then you can say कि I am very very convinced, but it is slightly less. It is 0.46. Can I take a phone call? There is a call, emergency call. Just give me a second. Hello. 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 Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes, sir, you are.
So what I was telling is that now there is a second order construct, here to here, here to here, and now again I have to look at the same statistics. I look at the variable summary, कुछ नहीं चाहिए, ये नहीं चाहिए. Notes for the model में there should not be any error at the bottom. If it is able to, देखो यहाँ लिखा आता है minimum was achieved. तो मिनिमम का मतलब जो काई स्क्वायर टेस्ट इसने रन किया है उसमें एक लोकल मिनिमम अचीव किया है. करेक्ट. काई स्क्वायर की वैल्यू भी आ गया, डिग्री ऑफ फ्रीडम आ गया, प्रोबेबिलिटी लेवल इज आल्सो देयर. Now there is only one value, देखो you can see it is 0.006. So if you want to consider it as significant, you consider it. Rest all are already significant. Correct. So there is only one difference, that this one value is slightly away. Here also everything is significant. Correct. But these values are little low. But in this case again model summary becomes important. If it is in your favor, you go ahead with this C mean by DF, CFI, maybe GFI, then NFI or P ratio. NCP, at time people report, at time they do not. But in our case, NCP is also in our favor because NCP is a badness of it. So good if it is close to 0. Because saturated model it said it should be 0. Correct. F min, RMSE, all those things. So basically the objective here is that we have understood the concept of second order. Again, it could have been that within this there can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zero order. For example, if you know service quality model, which has 5, what do you call as, subconstructs, right? So you look at the things and then you proceed. Any questions so far? Any questions so far? Nothing. Shantanu is happy. Everybody else is okay, okay, okay. So I think there is only one thing which is left. That is, how do we calculate the values of AVE, CR, and MSV and ASV, maximum variance and average variance. So let's look at that also. But before that, for example, now if I go back to the input, and now if I add that risk taking construct which had got 4 items, correct? Now if I put that construct here and I say that it leads to this, अब मैं इसको नाम दे देता हूँ risk taking. And I should not actually get into this now. This is something called as SEM, structural equation model. अब इसमें एक गलती है. Anybody, what is the mistake in this model? There are other 2 mistakes.
Error term?
Error term, where will it come? It will come here. And then I have to name these error terms. Now this will be called as a structural equation model, SEM, using MS. If it runs successfully and all that stuff. So अभी इसकी finding हमारी क्या होगी? If it becomes okay, then we will basically test the hypothesis. अभी यहाँ पर जो ये वाला relationship है ना, this relationship between this and this, it is simply a regression because it is going from a latent to a latent. तो अभी अगर मैं इसको देखूं रिलेशनशिप दोनों को, तो आई नीड नॉट टू लुक एट एनीथिंग एल्स. तो ये वाला होगा नहीं होगा. सो मैनी टाइम्स आई इम्प्यूट दीज वेरिएबल्स. उसकी बात करते हैं. चलो इसको छोड़ देते हैं अभी, इम्प्यूट की बाद में करते हैं बात. अच्छा, somebody actually mentioned there is a term called as modification indices. So at times when the validity concerns are there, we'll use modification indices also, but उसको बताते हैं बाद में. अभी के लिए let me share one link with all of you. Stats Wiki. Gaskin is one of the profound author who has created an Excel sheet, and Gaskin has his own website called as statwiki.gaskinization or gaskination. So he has spoken about all these concepts in much detail at bigger length, and along with this he has given an Excel sheet which has inbuilt macros. So you calculate all these things manually, AV, CR and all that. So he says that you use my Excel sheet and this will give you all these answers. I think it is, the application of this sheet is much beyond validity. It can give you multiple things. So what I am doing is I am going on to this website and I am downloading this Excel sheet. You can also do that. From here, stats tool package. Can you see this? Is this visible? The web link. So there is a website called as statwiki.gaskinization. So there is a stats tool package. Now this will actually help us to calculate the values. Now I open this Excel sheet. Are you able to download this Excel sheet?
Yes, sir.
Some of you who are familiarized with this may already have this in their computers. Why am I asking you to download? We can calculate everything manually also, but since I am working on multiple sheets, so it may be a little challenging for me to calculate everything. So there is something called as stats tool package. Now this is an Excel sheet which has a lot of embedded macros. Now if you look at, there are multiple sheets at the bottom. One is called as validity master, X2 difference, two-way interaction, group differences, fit check, effect size. Since the applications of MS are multiple, outlier, and much more. Since we are only concerned as of now with validity, so I click on this validity master. Now everything that you have to do is written here. So it says read the caveats and assumptions below and then click me. So there are some assumptions of this. It says the latent variable should not have a name like F1. Correct. So latent variable should be a proper name. Error term should be E1, E2, E3, E4. That is a good. Your variable should not have these names because these are the values that we are going to extract. AVE, MAX, CR, MSV. And again, I told you in the beginning also, you should have more than 2 latent variables. अगर आपके 2 latent variable नहीं होंगे तो आपका MSV और ASV नहीं निकलेगा. I think अभी क्या किया इन लोगों ने, that condition of ASV has been eliminated. So maximum shade variance ही निकालते हैं. That is why I have written it like this in my PPT also. If you read it, I have said to check the conversion validity, calculate CR and AVE. For discriminant only calculate MSV. So MSV अगर maximum shade variance कम है तो automatically average shade variance कम ही आता है normally most of the cases. So that condition has been relaxed. So only MSV is to be calculated. Correct. So we calculate CR, AVE and MSV, and ये तीनों नाम हमारे को नहीं देने हैं. And max is another thing that they have added in. You have no Haywood cases. अब Haywood cases का मतलब कोई भी standardized regression weight more than 1 नहीं होना चाहिए. Now Haywood case is a little tricky thing to understand. Basically Haywood case कब बनता है? When you have any regression weight which is more than 1 standardized regression weight. But ideally speaking, no regression weight in our case. For example, if I look at my output, standardized regression weight 0.1 से ऊपर कभी नहीं आएगा. You can look at this. It will always be less than 1. Unstandardized will be more than 1 at times, but he is saying only standardized weights. तो Haywood का केस प्रॉब्लम कब आता है वो वाला? That problem only comes in, I have read one or two papers where you have copied and pasted. For example, the response for HF1 has been copied into HF2. When HF1 and HF2 are 100% identical, only then this regression weight will become 1 and 1. Did you get it? So if you are doing an honest work, If you are not copying pasting the values into other variables, then this will not happen, but it may come, and this is called as Haywood. I think there is a question or a message in the chat box. Yes, somebody has raised a hand.
Sir,
Would it
Haywood
please-
case also comes where then are when there are items either 3 or less, or
Yes,
specifically in cases when there are less number of responses, because in terms of 4 or 5 responses,
very
वो
good,
इतना ज़्यादा repeat होता है that it becomes so highly correlated, it
very
shows
good.
to be a Haywood case.
So very good. There are 2-3 cases when the number of statements are either copy pasted or respondents are too less, that you are actually repeating the same respondents multiple times, or the number of items are too less in a construct. So I think we can avoid all those. And after reading this, again it is given me the formula that I have shown you. CR का formula यहाँ लिखा हुआ है, AV का formula भी लिखा हुआ है, H का formula भी लिखा हुआ है. H is, I think we have not spoken about. So now it says paste correlation tables in A2. So now I have to go to my output. Output पे जाके correlation table. So where is your correlation table? Is it there? This is correlation table, right? Copy, right click, copy, and you go to this Excel and you say paste. Here you have to paste the standardized regression weights table in F2. Standardized regression weights. So एक होगा unstandardized ऊपर वाली, नीचे होगा standardized regression. So again you copy and you paste it here. Now it says click me. So I have just clicked on this. Enable करना पड़ेगा कुछ. Reopen this workbook and choose to enable. I think I have not clicked on enable macros. So I have to start or open this sheet again. So let me close it without saving. See, at times we make this mistake, we forget to enable the macro. And I think I may have saved this file somewhere else also. Guys, am I making sense? Am I able to clarify some of your fundamental doubts? Because I think tomorrow will be the most crucial day. Tomorrow you will start with EFA and CFA may a lot of things will repeat. I think this is reset करके. So paste standardized regression here. There is some problem. Macros may at times there is a runtime error or something. Are you able to do it on your systems? Anybody? I think yesterday I tried it once before I had this session yesterday, today morning itself. So the moment you click on that button, so it automatically shows these values: CR, AVE, MSV, max R. Now again, this is another kind of reliability that generally is it was not there. So CR values, it should be 0.7 and above, AVE point maybe 5 and above, and these are above than MSV. So I think, and automatically it shows no validity concerns. Correct. So this stats tool package, is a good way to calculate these values. Correct. I think I can try one more time. If it works, it is fine. Otherwise, we will not get into that. Then we will get into the another topic जो हम बात कर रहे हैं, Paste correlation tables.
I think the new sheet has to be downloaded now. Sometimes it happens
हाँ,
with
corrupt
me.
हो जाता है. It gets corrupted, हैं?
Yes.
I understand your point. So let me do it last time. But otherwise, अगर आप इसको नहीं भी करेंगे ना, you can very easily view and you can see.
Yes.
You can automatically see कि these values are above 0.7. I think वो corrupt हो गया. I think you are right in that. So I have to download it again. Correct. So I will not do that. Rather, I will get on to, you have another 15 minutes to go. So if there are some validity concerns, for example, for one of the cases the AVE is less than 0.7 or CR is less, so there is an option called as modification indices, MI. So if you go to your again input, you go to analysis properties, so there is a button at the bottom, modification indices. इसके अंदर normally it is recommended that the threshold should be in 2 digits at least. So you change this threshold value, modification indices, threshold value, and then you probably run it again. Now what does it do? Modification indices, it actually tells you that at times there are certain error terms which are correlated. If you join them within one construct or between the constructs, then the values of validity, this thing AV and CR, they generally gets improved. So now it will suggest us, the moment you click on this, now you will have another button, modification indices. So you look at the values of covariance, I think there is none. Correct. So basically इसने run किया है and it says that in your data file modification indices is not required. It is so good in itself. Correct. But at times when you go with your data, this is a clean data file that I have given you. But otherwise, if you go with your own data file, many times you will find there are some 2-dimensional arrows. If I show you like this, at time there are some arrows. अच्छा इसको उल्टा नहीं लगा सकते, इसको ऐसे ही लगाना पड़ेगा. Have you seen something like this, an arrow like this and this? So basically, what are we doing? We are saying to treat them as together because they are highly correlated, and then the values of these, the loading हमारी है, they improves.
So how we can came to know that these we can connect to modification?
That is no. देखो modification indices. What does it do? Modification indices runs a covariance between all these terms, error 1 to error 2, error 2, error 3. So it will run a covariance between all these terms which are there, all these values. ठीक है ना? And it will tell you that the covariance between this and this is so high that if you join them, it will actually help you. Correct. So it actually shows. अभी इस केस में नहीं आ रही है मेरी values. So normally if you click on this, you go to modification indices. The moment you click on covariance, this table is empty. So here you will find 7-8 options or 2-3 options, that error 3 and error 1. If you join them, your C mean will go down by this. If you join this, C mean will go down this. So it is up to you. It is ideally said that you should not have many associations like this. So 1 or 2 is fine, and then you can also mention that I have used modification indices in order to improve the validity of the constructs. This is how it works.
This is for discriminant validity only, or both?
This is for convergent largely. Discriminant का नहीं हो, convergent बढ़ती है उससे.
जी. ठीक है. और sometimes discriminant validity उतना सही नहीं आते हैं कई बार values. So what we can do in that case?
Discriminant के अंदर देखो अगेन उसके अंदर एक ऑप्शन होता है, आई थिंक आई एम नॉट वेरी श्योर, यू हैव टू look at intercept means and estimate means and intercepts, and I think there is one more button that you have to click. Basically it shows you यहाँ पर test for normality and outliers, so it will show you those outliers.
Yes.
So if you remove those outliers manually, the values will improve. Correct.
Okay.
So you can do that test for normality and outliers. I don't think in this data file there is anything. So even if I click and try this, let me run. How does it show? Because I have done all these things several years back. These days I am using more of qualitative research. So here, if you look at the estimates in scalar, I think there is something that used to come in intercept or somewhere. It used to give you a kind of table where you will have numerous to nahi, if it is data file of maybe 1000
Few
respondents,
outliers.
so few outliers which you can remove. Correct.
Mhm.
I'm not too sure where does it come, but it is यहाँ से शायद आता है यहाँ पर. You can see this observation farthest from centroid, Mahalanobis distance. I remember this is the one. So for example, observation number 85, it has the highest distance. So if you delete this, the things may slightly improve. If you delete 17, the things may further slightly improve. So these are the observations with the distance from the centroid. Correct. So out of 143, I think there is a list of about 30-40 here. But you cannot delete everything. You start deleting from the top. Observation number 85, then 17, then 34. And I think things should improve by deleting 2, 3, 4 responses. And that is why I am telling you that the data that you fill in, or the data that you fed in, should be clean in itself. Otherwise the results will not come in your favor. Correct.
Thank you.
Actually, I think I have spoken a lot and I have not heard from the participants much. I hope I have made some value addition to some of you. And in case there are any questions, next 10 minutes, I am happy to help to answer. To sum up what I had done in the last 4 hours, I started from the fundamentals. What is quantitative research? The objective is to make inferences. What are the differences between the terms like concepts, construct, theory, model, hypothesis, proposition, variable? Then we have emphasized upon these two things, reflective as well as formative. Because जो formative है उसके बारे में हमने कुछ बात नहीं किया अभी तक. I think tomorrow also nobody will talk about formative. Formative will come in PLSM. But many times I have seen people, they make mistake. The construct is reflective, but they still go for PLSM because PLSM seems simpler than MS. The assumptions are slightly less. So you need to be sure about what is your construct type. Now I think there is one paper that I wanted to show. If I can show it to you now. It's an interesting paper which I have shared with the participants of the previous workshop. Is it visible?
Not yet.
Just read this. This is a very theoretical kind of paper, but it will give you a fundamental difference between reflective and formative models. अभी भी दिख रहा है नहीं दिख रहा अभी तक?
Visible, sir.
Yeah, visible now. So if you
Yes, sir.
read this, there are only 6-7 differences which are being highlighted here. So it says nature of construct in latent construct exists. In formative, you have to formulate a construct. Latent construct exists independent of the measures. So अगर आपके स्टेटमेंट कुछ भी हो, हैप्पीनेस तो है ना, स्ट्रेस तो है, या ड्रंक की बात कीजिए हम, ड्रंकर्डनेस तो है. तो अगर आपके पास कुछ भी स्टेटमेंट नहीं है, दैट स्टिल एग्जिस्ट, बट इसमें आपको क्रिएट करना पड़ेगा. करेक्ट. डायरेक्शनल ऑफ कॉजैलिटी इसमें लिखा हुआ कहाँ से कहाँ जाएगी. कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स ऑफ आइटम्स, आइटम्स शेयर ए कॉमन थीम. Here items may not share a common theme. So इसमें हमें जरूरत ही नहीं है चेक करने की वैलिडिटी. That is why formative is preferred. वो फॉर्मेटिव में रिफ्लेक्टिव के अंदर ना मैक्सिमम टाइम बिफोर यू एंटर इनटू मीडिएशन मॉडरेशन यू हैव टू फुलफिल द कंडीशंस ऑफ वैलिडिटी एंड रिलायबिलिटी, और वो आप कर ही नहीं पाते बहुत बारी. You continue to clean your data. The moment validity comes in, regression goes away. The moment regression comes in, validity goes away. So many times people go to SEMPLS कि validity check ही नहीं करनी, straight away go to the path analysis. So there you have to look at the construct and the basis. Correct. So items are not interchangeable. Here items are interchangeable. Items have high positive intercorrelation. Items may have any. Remember that example that I shared, experience of hotel. So जब हम बात कर रहे हैं कि I have this, I do this, I experience this, then they have high correlation. But room अच्छा है, but employees अच्छे नहीं हैं. It can be completely different things also. Correct. So यहाँ पर आप Cronbach alpha, AVE सब check करते हो. You can see this empirical test. Now this is what I have covered actually today. Cronbach alpha, average varies extracted, factor loading from common on confirmatory factor analysis. Empirical test, no empirical assessment of indicator reliability possible. Various preliminary analysis are useful to check directionality. So यहाँ पर आपको कुछ भी नहीं करना, ना फैक्टर लोडिंग देखनी है, ना AVE चेक करना है, ना अल्फा देखना है, ना CR देखना है. That is why people go for this, but without understanding the formation of the construct. Correct. Similarly, item relationship with construct. यहाँ पर एंटीसीडेंट क्या है, वहाँ पर कॉन्सिक्वेंस क्या है, यहाँ एंटीसीडेंट क्या है, कॉन्सिक्वेंस क्या है. इट इज इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट. एम्पिरिकल टेस्ट, identifying and extracting measurement error by common factor analysis. Here you use something called as collinearity should be ruled out. ये भी नहीं है, तो empirical testing भी easy है इसका. Correct. तो that is why now the demand for PLSM is higher, but the rationality is at times not there. Correct. So I talked about that, and after that we entered into the MS. We understood the various sections of MS, the canvas, the toolkit, and the other boxes that are there. Then we understood the meaning of, or the rule of thumb that we should know. 5 fundamental rules. What is rectangle? What is ellipse? What is one-sided? What is two-sided? Where should the error come in? And then we have understood 3 concepts: zero order, second order, and first order. Third order का मतलब है if there are 10 zero orders, 2-3 second order, and then there is third order. So third order के अंदर आपको you have to look at the validity for 0 and then second and then third. That it is more difficult than second order. Correct. So many times we don't even go into third order. We stop ourselves by saying it is second order and that's it. And then first order में it is slightly different. First order is largely used to check the discriminant validity. And we have taken up some doubts. We have used some dummy data file. तो direct and indirect option हम शायद परसों या कल करेंगे. Direct and indirect effect comes, I think there is a message in chat box. That comes in mediation. Correct.
Okay.
वो कल होगा. I'm sure somebody will take it up very seriously and you will enjoy that. So in case there is any question you can ask.
Sir, could you little bit clarify about if in case if the AVA is less than the average variance or the covariance is more than 0.50. Sorry, the covariance, not average variance. The covariance is more than 0.50. Then we go for a higher order construct.
हाँ, very good.
Where the covariation with the higher order construct should be greater than 0.50. In case if it is less.
See, I was basically telling you, first of all, you need to look at if there are 5 zero order constructs. So in all those 5, what is the covariance and what is the correlation? Correct. So if the correlation is around 0.1, less than 0.1, and it is insignificant, then they all have high discriminant validity. Correct. But if they are significant and they are correlated, that means those 2 zero order can be clubbed together to formulate a second order if they are high in correlation and significant. हमारे केस में क्या था, it was only 0.27, but I presumed that 0.27 is good enough, and then I made a second order out of 0.27 just to check whether second order is also coming nice or not. Otherwise, normally if it is 0.3 or 0.4 or 0.5, you can easily go into second order construct. But उसमें
Sir,
आपकी
just
जो हाँ बोलो बोलो.
so when we go to a higher order construct, तो जब हम लोग उसका we interpret the results on the basis of the factors, or we should take a composite result?
नहीं, we interpret the results on the basis of the same methodology. अब जो हायर ऑर्डर कंस्ट्रक्ट बना ना, तो उस हायर ऑर्डर कंस्ट्रक्ट के अंदर 2 जीरो ऑर्डर कंस्ट्रक्ट है या 3 है, तो उन तीनों का जो मैंने बात किया था 0.5 से ऊपर आना चाहिए फैक्टर लोडिंग या स्टैंडर्डाइज्ड बीटा. जो स्टैंडर्डाइज्ड बीटा है, so that should also be 0.5 and above. In our case
Sorry
it was
sir, I think
0.46.
I like to reframe the question. So the score जो हम लोग उसका total करते हैं for say correlation निकालना है, t-test ANOVA करना है, so we'll take it till the factors, या फिर जब हम लोग higher order लेते हैं तो we should take a submitted score.
I got your point. इसके अंदर जो सबसे important point है वो शायद 2 मिनट पढ़े हैं. If you want I can explain that. There is a term called as factor imputation. Let me again share. I think somebody will talk about it for sure tomorrow itself, but आपका point बड़ा valid है. So we have to impute the factors. Correct. Can you see the screen now? Can you see
Yes
the
sir, it
screen?
is visible.
Yeah. For example, I want to go for further tests. ठीक है. So in analyze there is an option called as data imputation. As of now in my data file I have only these 16 items. So if I say there is no second order that exists, correct, and I only run with the first order, so I can simply go to data imputation and automatically there will be a value which will be derived for holistic frame, strategic thrust and strategic thinking, and the file name will be demo file _c. In the same folder it will go, and there are 3 methods of imputation: regression imputation, stochastic regression and Bayesian. So you generally go for regression. So impute करके, and then if you want to use it for any other data analysis, you want to use simple path analysis, then this circle will become rectangle basically.
So your audio is not audible.
Hello. Hello.
Not
Sir, now you are
audible.
audible.
Audible नहीं था.
I was just telling you that, for example, if you create a relationship like this, ठीक है, then you cannot claim determinants of strategic thinking influence risk taking. Correct. Then you say strategic thinking influences this. Strategic thinking के सब parts क्या है वो अलग चीज हो गया. So if you want to show it in this model, you show it. If you want to show it separately, show it separately. But if it is not a second order concept नहीं बनेगा, and if you say delete this, and if you simply say this, now this is a multiple regression, this is one dependent, these are two independent, then now you can say holistic frame and strategic thrust contributes or influences this. Correct. So वो आपको देखना पड़ेगा कि what are you actually trying to prove. Are you looking for a bigger variable here, bigger latent variable, or you want to talk about only 2 smaller latent variable. अगर यहाँ bigger बनने का scope है तो it is always advised you use the bigger one. Otherwise you have to write it 6 times. This influences if there are 3 more. Correct. But the good part is that you can impute and you will have a new data file that will have these variables saved. Should I do it and show it to you once?
That would be good, sir.
Yeah, I can do that. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 minutes. I have to go somewhere at 5:30. I have time. So अभी के लिए it is running nicely. ठीक है. It ran. अभी मेरे 2 imputed variable हैं. So data imputation and impute हो गया. I just click on impute. ठीक है. I think I have to go back to the same file folder and look for demo file underscore c dot sav. Now if I go to the same folder, वो folder था मेरा, look at this demo file underscore ski, correct? Can you see this file? अब इसको open करता हूँ मैं. System is little slow in comparison to yours probably. Can you see the data file?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Now in this you will see 3 new variables inserted automatically. Can you see 17, 18, 19? Unknown,
Yes, sir, I
unknown,
can.
unknown, and data view में you will see their values also. Now what are these values? ये दो ही हैं basically, ये तो case number है तो कुछ नहीं है. So these are basically the normalized values, correct? But you can still work with them. Now if you want to establish a simple relationship between this and this, तो आप यहाँ पर SPSS के अंदर कर सकते हो आप. You want to find out a correlation between strategic thrust and holistic frame. So you could have taken the average of 6 and created a variable. But अभी हमने क्या किया, उन 6 के construct validity check करके you have created a new variable using a standardized regression method. अब ये जो values है ना, they will have much more preciseness and validity and what do you call as बहुत ज़्यादा अच्छी हैं उसके comparison में ये values, correct? Although
Okay,
they
sir.
may
Thank
look,
you.
they may look some nonsense kind of values, कोई 1 2 3 नहीं है, some are negative, some are positive, but these are the actual imputed normalized values, correct? Which you
Okay,
can
sir.
use
Thank you,
now
sir.
for any analysis. Thank you.
Yes.
Chali, I think we don't have much time. If two more questions are there, I can handle those. Otherwise, Dr. Jamshed, shall we say bye-bye?
I think because tomorrow they will not come, then it will be a problem for me.
Yeah. I don't want them to run away in one day. अभी game शुरू हुआ है. I think tomorrow they will pick up in the next topic and that will be more challenging.
Yes, sir.
Chali, with this, I thank once again to the organizers, to the
Rahul,
entire team.
Sure, sir.
Rahul, can you conclude the session?
Yeah, sure, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for such a wonderful session and enlightening us on a topic. And it was a great learning experience as far as my personal experience is, because certain things that was not known to know and certain things that I was not aware of. Actually, I came to know those things, and clarity has emerged out of the way you explain the things. So thank you so much, sir, on the behalf of Department of Management, Jamia Hamdard. Thank you so much, sir, once again.
Sir has already left, I suppose. Thanks, participant,
Maybe network issue, sir.
for being the patiently listening to us. We will meet tomorrow at 9 a.m. With a new resource person. The topic and resource person detail I have already shared. We have already chosen 3 of the academician who will add the